can define, in historic districts there's contributing and non-contributing resources. Could you explain what contributing and non-contributing, so as the discussion goes on, people have some terms defined?
All of our districts have a period of significance that is the period of time during which the majority of the housing or buildings were developed, and so it might be a 30-year span or as long as a 100-year span. And so contributing buildings are buildings that fall within that significant period, that retain architectural features, original architectural features that are representative of the historic characteristics of the district. A non-contributing building would be something that's built after the period of significance, that is not of architectural consequences or of materials that are not generally used in the district. Any other thing, Norman? Usually it is going to be a new building that is within a historic district.
But outside of the period.
Outside of the period of significance.
So then is non-original and post-historic, are they similar terms? If something is non-original,
maybe the better way to describe it is that each of the buildings in a proposed historic district are evaluated by the study committee, and they point out what characteristics are considered to have historic significance.
Okay.
And so those elements of any of the buildings that have historic significance are things that we want to preserve. Now, you can do additions to those buildings as long as you preserve the historic character. You can make other changes. You can do infill. As long as you recognize and evaluate that historic significance. Now, there are some buildings, when the study committee looks at them, they don't see anything of historic significance on those buildings, so they would be non-contributing, which means you have a lot more flexibility in what you can do as an owner.
Yeah. Okay. All right. A basic question, do all repairs and changes need to go, I'm talking about in a historic district.
No.
Do they need to go before the commission?
No, no. There are about 30 items that the staff person may give approval for without going to the Historic District Commission. It's only an alteration that actually changes the appearance of the exterior of the house, generally speaking, that goes to the commission.
Okay.
So she has quite a bit of leeway for approving projects.
All right. And approximately this past 2009, how many projects came before the commission, just approximately?
I think I gave you those figures,
you did.
Nancy.
You did.
I don't have them on the top of my head.
You said 168.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yes.
And about 95% of those projects were approved by either the commission or the staff, Jill Thatcher.
Right. So in this approval, there are 4 kinds of certificates. We're just getting some terms before we go into a discussion of specifics. There are 4 kinds of certificates that the Historic District Commission can confer. Certificate of appropriateness, notice to proceed, denial, and postpone to a date certain.
Right.
Can you tell, especially the denial, I think, and the postponement are kind of obvious, but the certificate of appropriateness as opposed to the notice to proceed?
A
Could you tell the difference?
of appropriateness is when the project meets the Secretary of Interior guidelines. It's approved immediately. A notice to proceed is used when a project does not meet the Secretary of Interior guidelines but has certain reasons that the commission might give to allow the project to go forth.
Okay,
and
good.
there are 4 of those.
Yeah,
and
we can get into them again. So that's the difference. You're allowing them to go forward, but it's not.
It does not comply with the guidelines.
Okay. Okay. So before we get into specific examples, I'd like to know, what is the political and decision-making relationship between council and the historic district?
Well, the decisions that are made by the historic district are not under the purview of council. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's exactly right.
It's not. It's a separate body.
Okay.
And it deals only with the resources in historic districts. Council establishes study committees.
Yes.
They are appointed by the mayor and approved by council. And so that's not under the purview of the Historic District Commission. We do have things that are we're able to do. We are able to study areas, to do surveys, to promote preservation, but the actual establishment of a historic district is purely under council's jurisdiction. So we act as a body that is approving or denying projects that are in historic districts, and that's not council's purview.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify. Yes, definitely.
One of the interesting aspects of it is, what if somebody comes before the commission, their proposal's denied, and they want to appeal?
Yes, we're going to get into that. Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead. And we can visit
And so they
twice.
don't appeal to the zoning board, they don't appeal to council, they appeal to the state review board.
Mm-hmm.
And the state of Michigan has a separate board that deals with appeals from historic district commissions from around the state. And so that removes it from the local political process as much as possible. And I think it's fair to everybody as a result.
Yes, thank you for that. I think that's right. Removing it from the political process seems to be an important aspect. And what about the relationship, the political and decision-making with the Planning Commission? Is there any relationship between the Historic District and the Planning Commission?
There isn't. Sometimes site plans that will come before a historic district also will come before the Planning Commission, but there's not, one doesn't have to approve something for the other to act on it, or so essentially there's not a defined relationship between the two.
Okay.
Can I expand on that a little bit?
Certainly, please.
Because if we look at the mandate of a Historic District Commission, it is to review the historic character of structures within a historic district. They have a very limited scope, but within that scope, a very powerful role. They have the power to approve or deny what you can do with your property. What's interesting to me as a planner is the fact that there is a disconnect between historic districts and their ordinances and the comprehensive plan. And I think that that's one of the problems that we have. And I've been working with a committee to try to look at how we can incorporate historic preservation more into the planning process. I think there needs to be a better connection between those two things. Planners don't get involved with historic preservation very much, and preservationists don't get involved with planning very much. I think that's a mistake. And so I did a survey with one of my colleagues of states around the country to see how many of these states have as part of their planning legislation some reference to historic preservation. And only 4 states had that, which I think is a shame. And out of those 4 states, after we made contact with people, they said, and we don't even worry about it. And so I think there needs to be a lot more attention to the connection between planning and preservation than there is at this point.
Yes.
Now, one of the advantages of preservation in the Historic District Commission is it is relatively autonomous. So we don't want to lose that autonomy, but we also want to be more part of the larger community process.